Hello and welcome to episode 35 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. My name is Susie. I am your host and I am an Akashic Records practitioner and teacher. And today's episode is a wonderful conversation I had with Colin Stevenson. I will put all of Colin's information into the show notes. And Colin is a truth reader. Colin is a very gifted psychic intuitive who I recommend to people all of the time to go and see if they want a reading to just help get some guidance on their life going forward. As you will hear from the conversation, Colin kindly shares his own spiritual growth, his own spiritual development, and all of the different tools that he uses to help guide people on their journey. Colin also has just had his first book published, Truth in the 2020s. I am just waiting on my copy to come through, which I'm very excited about. I already know that this is going to be a great book. I may do a book review on the podcast, and I'll put the Amazon link in the show notes for those of you who want to go and read this first installment of a series that I have no doubts is going to be amazing, mind-blowing, and give you lots and lots of aha moments. So without further ado, here is this week's episode, my conversation with Colin. So, hello, Colin. Thank you so much for being here today. Why don't we just get straight into it and you can tell people who you are, what you do, and what you're all about?
Thank you, and thank you for having me on. Hello to you too. Hi, everybody. My name's Colin Stevenson. I am from Glasgow, father of four. I am a psychic, if you wish to call me that. I am a truth reader. I like to work with truth. I like to work with spirit. I like to work with esoteric, but I also live a very real life, and I like to see things for what they are. And I see things in black and white. There are not many grey areas in life that I see, and I think that can either help or hinder my journey forward. However, sticking to that allows me to be true to myself.
I love that. I love that. And you undersell yourself there, absolutely. It's like, oh, you can consider me this, you can consider me that. I have to say, I have had a reading with Colin for everyone who's listening, and I've had lots of readings of various different shapes and forms over my lifetime. Colin has developed his own cards and has developed his own method. He's very much self-taught, as am I. And I think sometimes people will dismiss self-taught people because they don't have the certificate to say, okay, this is me. But actually, being self-taught allows you to develop a methodology and a process which actually cuts through the noise and other people's
Yeah.
perspectives of how something should be done to be able for you then to be guiding people in the way that is actually true to you and in alignment to you. And Colin is absolutely brilliant
Thank
at cutting through that noise that you're creating for yourself and helping to steer you in, okay, these are the points that you actually need to look at. So if anyone is sat there and they're thinking, I'd just love some guidance on my life going forward, on what to do, how to do it, where I'm lying to myself, essentially, because that's what we do a lot of the time. Colin is absolutely one of the best readers that I have ever come across. So
you.
definitely, I will put obviously your contact details and everything into the show notes, but definitely give him a follow on social media and book in with him. So my first question to everybody on this show, and then we'll just let the conversation go where it goes, is how have the Akashic Records specifically helped you on your own spiritual journey?
Great question. Okay, so I wasn't sure of the Akashic Records until about 4 years ago. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago when you and I first spoke.
Hmm.
And when I got that reading, I was like, wow, because it showed me the difference between what we're consciously working with and why we're here from our past lives. And that's where I got a bit of a shock, if I'm honest. And not a shock as in, I was shocked as in somebody could give me this information, but I didn't even know it was there. And as much as I can pick up things and feelings and knowledge and thoughts and everything else that's kind of here in this world, I didn't realize there was so much in other worlds and other fractals and all these things, and everything resonated. So when I was able to understand where I came from, and this was all part of the whole reason that I was here, and how many times I'd been here, which, you know, when you're getting into the hundreds, you're like, wow, this is like crazy. And then I started using that towards my purpose. And this is part of when I started to develop, just as you spoke about there, where I started to develop my own way of working and everything else, because I realized that we're here to learn from everybody, absolutely. But we've also got all the knowledge ourselves. And just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And the Akashic Records, I felt, kind of gave me that. Then it was 2020, I think, when I was meant to move away. And obviously, we know that didn't happen for other reasons. However, when you gave me, it was like my soul reading. And on that paper, and all my numbers and my numerology and everything else, this kind of added up. And I remember actually sitting, reading it on my laptop in Starbucks down in London. And I remember messaging you saying I'm actually in tears reading this, because it just sat with me. But I don't mind admitting that I'm a big softie. And I literally sat and read this, and I was like, this is your purpose. This, everything that you thought about when you were a kid and why you're meant to be here was all right. It's just that when you're a kid, you get rubbished with your family, your friends, or you don't believe because you don't have the experience. And it was that, I'll never forget that day in Starbucks. And that day literally just gave me some sort of kick right up the backside and really kind of threw me into a whole different dimension of living here.
Yeah.
And I also realized that you can be perfectly human with human desires and human behaviors, and you don't have to be against the system. You don't need to be doing all these things to be able to create your own purpose and everything in here. A lot of the division that we face is stuff that we learn, but we can also discern from what we learn, but we can also realize that nobody's against us. The ones that people depict as against them, such as the government and all these people, they're only out for themselves. They're not against us. So why can't we just be out for ourselves? And all these realizations came to me within that kind of space and time. And yeah, it's just been incredible. So the Akashic Records, like, I speak to people about it all the time. I'll give them a reading. I'll say, have you ever had your Akashic Records done? And they'll say, no, what's that? And you try and explain it, and they go, how's that even possible? It's like, how can people go into our past lives and realize what our purpose is here and why? It's crazy. But again, it's not until you sit down in front of you and say, okay, do it to me and give me that, you go, shh, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah, and I think it's so important. You've picked up on so many important points. One is that we have this really limited view of ourselves, that we're just who we are, born in this lifetime, and that's it, and that we don't have anything within us, and it's just all learning external from outside of us. I think one of the main things with the Akashic Records is, first of all, zooming out and seeing that you in this lifetime as a manifestation are a combination of all of those other lifetimes that have taken place. So it's not just based on what this lifetime has to offer you, but also that there's gifts and skills that you have developed in those lifetimes that are still there within you. And I think there can be a big focus on people looking outside of themselves for information and guidance. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I love the fact that people listen to this podcast or check my stuff out on social media, but I never want that external search and that external pulling of information to take away from, you have everything within you that you need. Like, you came into this lifetime fully equipped with everything that you need. And all spiritual practice is supposed to be about is you getting to that part of you and getting comfortable with that part of you in all its beautiful uniqueness. And I think we lose that. One of the things that you've touched on there helps us to lose that is the amount of programming and conditioning that we receive from day one on planet Earth. And what I think there's a lot of focus in the world at this moment in time on, we need to blame people for the programming and conditioning. We need to point outside of ourselves and say, well, there's nothing I can do. And that it's taking that radical self-responsibility and say, yes, I was programmed and conditioned by people who were also programmed and conditioned by a society that was programmed and conditioned. What I see a lot of, which is that let's destroy everything. It's easy to destroy. And one of the things I love about you is that you can acknowledge and see, okay, that system's broken. Okay, but rather than getting into the why is it broken, who's behind the system, all of that noise, it's about acknowledging that a system is broken and then saying, okay, what can we create? What can I do in my capacity with my gifts and skills to help create something new for the next generations, for the people now? And I think it's a very important distinction to make, because destruction and destructive energy is very easy to get sucked into. It's very easy to point the finger, but creation energy, which is the energy of the universe, it's the energy of God, is much harder to then sit and go, okay, I can do this. So if you don't mind talking a little bit about kind of your relationship to programming conditioning and how you've deprogrammed and deconditioned, which is a lifelong mission, as we know.
Of course.
And also your relationship to destruction and creation.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice one. So my deprogramming started when I was actually in the armed forces. When I was in the armed forces, I lived a very much a low vibrational life before I went in. I was in entertainment, which we know is usually for self-satisfaction, ego, creating an alter ego. And it was literally because I didn't know myself. I knew inside that what I had was good, but what I did was I made everything outside so that I gained no fulfillment. If you wish, the fulfillment was in the moment, but then long term it was nothing. So when I was 30 years old, don't ask me why, I decided to go and join the army. And I went and joined the army. I don't believe in war. I don't believe in raiding other people's countries. I don't like hurting people, never mind killing them. But there was something that told me that I had to go and do it. And this was the first time that I ever properly followed my intuition. You know, I get slagged off with the family. Everyone was like, what is going on here? And I went in. Now, because I went in, I was very much in the army protects the country, fight for the queen and country, all that kind of stuff. And that was my belief. And it wasn't until I went in I realised how corrupt the whole system was. And that was when I looked at it. The bullying, the corruption, the pillaging, the raiding other countries, everyone getting bullied while they're in there, everyone getting treated badly. And I mean, everybody, there was nobody getting treated nicely. So then when I was in there, I spent a lot of time on my own. Because I was older, the people my age were ranks above me that I weren't allowed to associate with me. And then the people younger at my rank were just so much younger. And I knew that I had more wisdom and stuff. So sitting talking about, you know, a pair of boobs on the television didn't do anything for me. You understand? It was like you're talking to young men full of all that nonsense that I used to be as well. And I was like, so I didn't fit in. So what I did was I started researching the financial systems. I started researching all this kind of stuff. And I was like, couldn't believe it. So I did turn into a bit of a conspiracy theorist. I turned into a bit of trying to find out why and the what and the how and exactly what you just explained. And what happened was I actually got myself into the biggest dark night of the soul that you could ever possibly imagine by doing this. Now, this wasn't something that somebody told me to do or not to do. This was just a natural occurring journey. Everyone else around me thought I was nuts. So when I actually got into this and I started finding out, and then you started looking at all the other things, the reptilian stuff and this and this and this, and then all this happening and all the presidents in America were meant to be doing this to children. I was like, oh, and I could feel the pain on myself. But I think I wasn't feeling the pain of what was happening because we don't even know if that's a psyop or not. But what I did feel was the pain that I felt thinking about it. Then I was going through a divorce and a child custody thing at the time for my oldest son. And all of these things were an added stress. Even going through that, while I was in there learning about all this stuff, I saw that the system wasn't fair for the mums and the dads. And the system wasn't fair for the children. The system wasn't fair. So everything just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was like I got hit with this so hard that I literally was ready to just backflip off a bridge somewhere. I was like, I cannot take this anymore. And I even phoned my mother and I said, listen, I'm done. She's like, don't be so blooming silly. This is all going to pass. But at the time, you don't realise things will pass. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And I'll be completely open and honest with everybody on here. I was driving down the motorway at 90 miles an hour and I had my steering wheel and I went and I pulled it into the central reservation as in just to flip my car over and just go. And something stopped my wheel from turning. And I went, something's wrong here. So then I went, and I was so angry. And I went, I tried it again. It stopped it again. I was like, something's weird, right? I was like, what is going on? So anyway, all I did was I pulled into the hard shoulder and I broke down crying. And I went, I can't even do this right. What is wrong with this world? You know, what is going on? And that was the point where I managed to get out of the army. And the first thing that I went to do was, work with my late father. I went to work with him part-time, just to get away from there and just like earn some money. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I knew it wasn't going back to anything I'd done before.
Yeah.
And what happened was I had this desire for years, and I mean years and years, that I knew this heat came out of my hands, and I knew that I had something inside of me. So I went and I learned Reiki, right? Now, for me, Reiki is much of a way of selling. We all have energy, we can all exchange it. But for me, it was more to learn that was more to get the qualification that other people understood. And it was also to kind of reiterate, and where I didn't believe in myself as much, I believed I had something that I was able to do. After a very short time, I stopped doing Reiki and I just started doing what I do. But at this time, I started seeing, and then I went through the whole. So I'd been through the awakening, I'd been through the dark night of the soul, I'd been through seeing how corrupt the system was, I've been through this whole conspiracy thing, and then I was like, what can I give back, right? Because I can't deal with this anymore. So I started giving back. But then when I was giving back, I felt as if it wasn't genuine. The intention was, but then I was like, I'm not spiritual enough. I need to go and grow my hair into a top knot, and I need to wear the yoga pants, and I need to do all this stuff and sing kumbaya to people that walk past in the street and stuff. I started doing this, and again, you were getting totally judged, and your identity's changed again. But all these identities that I had kind of started working towards where I was meant to be, and so I just kept going, and again, following this intuition. Then obviously met yourself through the Akashic Records stuff. I met another guy, Ted Capstick, and Ted he's a very different reader. So he's a medium that works with esoteric astrology, and it's all to do with your birth chart. But it's not like Westernized where you're a Taurus, you're stubborn. It's not like that. It was very much he could actually tell you. He said your mum's going to die, your dad's going to die, your grand's going to die while you're still quite young, but they're going to help you with this, and they're all sacrifice petals in your life. And I mean, it was mental. And everything he told me was like, it wasn't like a psychic reading. It was there in front of you. And then the way that yours matched up with his, and then my own understanding, intuition, and experience that I'd just been through in the last kind of 5, 6 years, I was like, this is absolutely off its head. Like everything just all comes together at one point. And I felt as if I'd harnessed all this kind of power. And when I say power, it's not power that I exert or have over anybody else. It was feeling power within myself, that I had the drive, the get up and go, and the intention to go and do my best to help people become better versions, or exactly what you're doing and a lot of other people. What I had to realize though was the difference between what spirituality was and what people put out to the world pretending to be spiritual. And we spoke about earlier on in our previous conversation, when it's like a distraction from who they are. They try and create something else rather than be themselves. And this
Yes.
is where I find it's like these people are like, you're spiritual, you're this, you're that. And I was like, nah, there's something again missing here. It's like I don't feel they're being genuine. They were kind, they were nice, they were pleasant, but I was like, there's something not, because I was literally going from what I had learned and experienced, and the drive was from inside, not
Yeah.
from what matters on the outside. And I just started following this journey, which led me to a thing called ayahuasca, right?
Mhm.
Now, I was a very earthly being, we'll call myself that, right? And a very earthly being, I still had the male desires, I still had the desires of life and money and all these things. And what I did was through this ayahuasca, I didn't get awakening more. I became more aware of who I was on the earth realm, not the spiritual realm. And what
Yeah.
happened was I came out of that experience, which I didn't enjoy at all. Like
Mhm.
I found it completely unpleasant, but also at the same time, it was very purposeful and it was profound to my growth. So it was that kind of bittersweet. And when I came out of it for 2 years, I didn't go with a woman. I didn't drink alcohol. I didn't smoke a cigarette. I didn't do any of this kind of stuff. And again, I'm trying to go through all this, trying to guide myself and say, I can't do any of this because that makes you not spiritual, and you can't live this life and you can't do this. But then I realized I was miserable, right? I was purposely fulfilled. I was gaining energy by what I was doing, absolutely. But some of these things that were given on earth, whether they could be seen as demonic or derogatory or whatever they are, they're still part of this life. And then this is where I had the whole light and dark, the whole duality thing going on. I was like, I can be all of this. I am all of this. And I can
Yeah.
still be the person that wants to go and help other people and do it. So then this is where throughout the journey I started learning about the mind and the brain with John Lenhart through in Flow Session America. And this blew me away because it also showed me who I was in the way that my brain worked. And I was this soft, nice guy. But for years, I tried to pretend I wasn't soft. And for years, I tried to pretend I wasn't, this, nice natured, like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory for giving Grandpa Joe his tobacco type stuff. And then I was like, so I've learned all this stuff. I've learned the Akashic Records. I've learned the esoteric astrology. I've learned the conspiracy stuff. I've learned to let go of it. I've got through the dark night of the soul, had the realizations. But then also I've taken the realizations back and thought, no, I'm not fighting that. I'm not a bad person for wanting to do this or have that. That's perfectly normal. We're here to experience everything. So then I started kind of amalgamating everything in my life, and it's kind of brought me to where I am just now.
I love that. I love that. And I think the thing is, it's so important for people who are listening to understand that if you're going through any of these stages that Colin's talking about, the dark night of the soul, I have to wear the yoga pants, grow the top. No, I love that. To be spiritual, your very existence is spiritual. The choice to come to earth and be a human is one of the bravest decisions a soul can make, purely because of the density and the distractions and all of these human desires that come into play, and acknowledging that there's different stages, and it's completely okay when you're in those stages, because those stages are what brings to, as you've just quite rightly said, that beautiful amalgamation of who you are. And I'm sure you're like me. I'm always growing, I'm always changing, I'm always evolving. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I don't think that there's an end goal to get to. And there's people who are attached to certain concepts, certain practices along the spiritual journey. And this is what then will develop a spiritual ego. And developing a spiritual ego is also completely normal. And you come to a point where you go, hang on, I'm making this my whole personality and my whole identification, rather than, okay, how am I as a human when I operate in the world? How loving am I towards my children? How loving am I towards my community? What am I actually doing to be of service in this lifetime? So I think that's such a beautiful explanation of how the different stages come about and how you change and evolve and grow with them to get to a point of a more amalgamated, which ultimately just means aligned to your soul and your purpose in this lifetime. So thank you for sharing that. In view of all of that information, okay, you and I both know there's some crazy morning routine, evening routine videos. You have to spend 5 hours before you even leave the house in the morning, meditating, doing all of this stuff. Otherwise, you aren't spiritual. Okay. So what I ask guests is one practice, okay, that no matter how busy your day is, no matter what's going on in your life, one practice, if you just had to share with the audience one practice that has helped you throughout all of that, that is your go-to practice when you're busy with kids, you've got work, you've got normal life going on, what's that one practice that you can't live without?
Nice. So again, that's evolved over time, because at first, when it was all to do with meditation. And for me, meditation is not a spiritual practice, it's a necessity until you can actually feel who you are, what you're aligned with, and it gives you so much when you do it. But then that started fizzling away when I started becoming more independent within myself, and I had to stop searching through the noise and other things. So for me, at the moment, it is the way that I've found my purpose. And again, I want to just share with people, finding your purpose is not important. It's experiencing the experiences in life that's most important, and taking the wisdom from all of them. Your purpose will come eventually. Now, what I believe is I was extremely lucky to find my purpose early on. Now, most people don't usually find it until they're older. I think I was about 36, 37 when I started to understand where I was going. I understood my purpose. I wasn't quite living it at that point, and I'm now living it. But that's only the last couple of years properly that I've actually put it into practice and worked out the best way to do it. So for me, if you start with meditation, and again, it's not at a specific time of day, it's all to when you put yourself rigidly into a routine. What you're doing is you're saying, I have to live like this, and nothing can change in my life. So all of the, I need to get up, jump in the cold water, jump out, have my chamomile tea, jump into a 50 meditation and then go straight onto my journaling and then go for that run towards my car and then take the car. All of this, you're actually stopping yourself from anything from the outside coming in to give you that extra. So for me, if they can stick to just having one form, would be meditation to start off with. And do it, doesn't matter, morning, noon or night, just make that time for yourself. That's all it is. It's taken away from the family, the friends, the work, the distractions, the conspiracies, the whatever, and just to sit and just understand that what you're sitting with is yourself. Don't try and turn your brain off. It's impossible. Just allow yourself to sit with your thoughts. Once you've then gained insight through that, I do believe that the best practice is to be yourself no matter what. And that's, if you continue doing that through your whole life, you'll become more fulfilled and your self-esteem levels will raise, tenfold.
I love that. I love that because that's how you tune into that authenticity and also how you create space for the openness to allow the divine to work through you.
Yeah.
This is why I'm always talking about the neutral energy, and neutral energy is just any activity where you get out of your head and believing that your thoughts are you and just puts you into that energy of openness. Because one of the things, I'm sure you get asked this a lot because of your abilities as a psychic, is how do I develop my psychic abilities? How do I develop my intuition? And there's all these tips and tricks that you can do to strengthen specific aspects of it. But all of that's kind of secondary to the authenticity, because when you're authentic, you're in alignment to that internal navigation system, which is your intuition.
Yeah.
So that first stage is really about finding out who you actually are, regardless of the noise, regardless of what society's told you, regardless of the 10,000 different distractions you have all day. Who am I when I sit by myself with my thoughts and become the observer of those thoughts rather than attaching to them, becoming the observer of the emotions that come up. And when anger comes up, not going, oh, hang on, I'm supposed to be a really spiritual person. I'm not supposed to feel any anger. I'll just ignore that and I'll repress it, sitting with it. And I love the Buddhist take on it, that when one of these emotions comes up, you say, oh, hello, anger. And you kind of give it its own little identity and say, what are you doing here? What do you need from me? What are you trying to teach me? Because everything that happens in your life, I believe, every single person that you meet, every situation that happens is ultimately here to teach you how to be more authentic and how to be more aligned. And where you're out of alignment, people will often say, I have this spiritual practice and I feel amazing after I've done this extremely complicated routine. But then they go out into the real world, someone comes along, cuts them off in the car, and they're screaming and shouting out the window. And it's like, okay, so what was all that stuff for? There's nothing wrong. If that's what's coming up for you, then that's what's coming up for you. But they're not taking that lesson and going, oh, hang on. Actually, what I need to be doing is digging into why I've been triggered by the person cut me off in the car, or the boss at work who just grates me as soon as I walk into the office. It's like, oh, I've got this anger and tension building up. They'll construct these really complicated plans and schedules for themselves rather than letting life itself be the guru and show you everything that you need, every area you're out of alignment, and to give you those nudges to say, okay, this is where alignment is, this is how alignment feels, and this is all the stuff that you need to let go of to help you live in more alignment.
Yeah, 100% agree. And, for me, the whole of life is the journey. Everyone thinks that they're trying to find a path, but the whole thing, even finding the path, is part of the journey. It's like everything is the journey. And once people realize that, they let go of certain ideals, they let go of trying to push certain agendas, they let go of trying to do anything. Like people say, what's your best routine? If I want to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'll do that. If I want to get up at 12 in the afternoon, I'll do that. If I want to sleep on the couch, I'll do that. If I want to go to bed, I'll do that. I don't have a routine. I don't have anything anymore, because as long as I've got purpose, which I've found, as I say earlier, so as long as I'm doing that daily, I've got enough energy and there's enough exchanges. I can earn a living, I can look after the family. These things are all there. So I don't actually have to do anything specific now, as long as I can maintain and grow at the same time.
I love that. And it reminds me of a quote, which is that you're on the path when the path disappears. When you're not looking for a path, that's when you're on the right path, because a lot of the paths that are out there are shared by people who that was how they got to where they were going. That's how they got into that place of alignment and true self-realization. But that doesn't mean that that's the only way, and it doesn't mean that it's the way that's right for you. And you can take things from paths and practices, and they can absolutely help. And it's also okay to use a tool for a while that you find helpful and then drop it when you're no longer resonating with it. Same with teachers. I'm sure you're the same as me, that there's been teachers on my journey who I've resonated with. I've absorbed everything that I can from them, and then they just no longer resonate and they haven't changed. It's not that what they're doing is wrong. It's just that I no longer need that teaching. And that's great. And you move on to another. And then, but all of that ultimately is trying to lead you back to yourself.
Honestly, when I say to people, life's the most beautiful thing you'll ever have, and you said, quote, this is the hardest choice to make, is to come here. And I can understand why, because there are so many ups and downs. And when you decide to embrace, the good and the bad, most people on this earth are trying to avoid bad. They're trying to avoid tension. They're trying to avoid anything that could possibly go wrong. And they're only trying to manifest good. If you're only trying to manifest good and big, you're not going to deal with what's small and bad. And then when that comes in, you're not going to have any resilience towards it. And this is where I feel I did try that, and I did used to go for pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. Now I know if a situation's painful, I'll go for it, not because I want to self-sabotage or harm myself. It's because I know when I work through that tension, shall we call it, I come out the other side and I've gained wisdom from it, and I no longer have fear of it. And this is, again, some people are scared to live their life. And I'm fear of nothing anymore. And it's not because somebody could hold a gun to my head. I wouldn't like it. I would feel I'd be all going in the moment or whatever, but I can't go through my life scared of it. I can't go through my life scared of losing friends and family and money and status and anything. Because what happens is I spend more time trying to hold on to things. And that's this attachment that I don't get to experience in anything new. And it's like people say, people come into your life for a reason, just as you said, your teachers, whatever. If you try and hold on to that teacher, it's actually going to go against you, because then it's obviously reverse osmosis, if you wish. And whatever you've learned, you're actually going to start to lose, because you're not going to just take it, grab it, and move on to the next one and just keep going. And I generally feel that this is probably turning into more of a self-help podcast for people listening for their own journey. But what comes out's got to come out. And I genuinely feel if people were just less fearful of the bad and just accepted or embraced it, in the essence, there's not really any good or bad. There only is and there isn't. And there's nice and something that doesn't feel as nice. It's not really not nice.
I love that. And on that topic of the attachment, because I know you do a lot of work with men and women around relationships. And obviously this is a big topic that comes up in the Akashic Records. People want to know about their soul contracts, their twin flames, their soulmates, and all the rest of it, which is great. And I've done another podcast episode on that, so people can go and listen to that. Okay. Just from that human perspective, in your work with people around relationships, understanding, and I know you have a good understanding of women and men in this conversation, what do you think is the main problem when it comes to relationships in this day and age? Okay,
Good
big question, I know.
Good question. I can answer this quickly and precisely. Most people are out to take. They're out to see what they can take and what's been given to them before they're willing to open up and give to the other person. And that, for me, is the most difficult thing to do, because if I'm in this and I'm going, for talking sake, this is what I want and this is what I want, and if they don't give me that, I'm not going to open up. And then the other person's doing that, but we're attracted to each other. We've got some energy, we've got some synergies, and what we're doing is we're actually repelling each other like the back end of a magnet while we're trying to pull ourselves together. So the only advice, or the main piece of advice I would, is ask what you can give that person to make them feel safe, to make them feel seen, to make them feel understood. What do they value, and what can you do, or what do you need to step outside your comfort zone to be able to give that person? Because that is where I don't believe in unconditional love, because everything's conditional. If you couldn't give unconditional love to a partner that you know that just went out and killed 10 old ladies, do you understand? It's like everything, there's always a condition to a degree. But if you can put everything you've got in without any hang ups of your own, that for me is the biggest problem within relationships.
I love that. And I do disagree with you on the no unconditional love. I do believe there is unconditional love. I think it's an overused term for sure. And I think in relationship situations, I think it's very rare for there to be unconditional love. I
Yeah,
think,
that's what I meant. Yeah, so I'll accept your words better than mine. You've put
yeah,
that much better than I did.
yeah. And I think, you know, from what I see a lot of the time is with relationships, is what people are trying to do is they feel that internal desire to connect to unconditional love and to be unconditionally loved. And they seek it outside of themselves in the form of a relationship rather than realizing that they are unconditional love themselves,
Yep.
and they have to give that love to themselves first. Because I know one of the kind of tips that always comes through in people's Akashic records when they ask about attracting a soulmate level kind of relationship in the Akashic records is always turning it back on them and saying, well, how much do you actually love yourself in that first place? You know, how much self-acceptance do you have? Because what I see a lot in the world is unhealed, wounded people who are trying to fill a gap by bringing someone else into their life and their energy.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is if you don't really truly know yourself and you don't really have that true self-acceptance, bringing someone else into the mix is just going to cause more complication, and it's going to allow you the opportunity to project onto that person all of the stuff that you're trying to avoid hiding. Because this is, as Ramdas says, everybody that you meet is God in drag. So that partner that's going to show up is the partner that you need. It might not be the one that you want in respect of what they're going to show you, but it's using the relationship situation when you're in one to be able to take what's triggered within you,
Yep.
what comes up for you, and actually seeing it as it's coming up in you. It's not actually that person. It's not a them problem, it's a you problem.
Yeah. And it's very difficult. And the way that you've put that is unconditional love. When I say I don't believe in it, I don't think I've ever experienced anyone wanting to be unconditional towards me. There's always been what I can give them and what I can supply them. And when you're of service, again, some people are not here to be of service. Some people are here to take. And there's a duality in people. And most of the people that I have been with in the majority of my life have been here to take, which is fine. I've been of service. So when I say I don't believe in unconditional love, I've never had somebody that wants to give me as much as I was wanting to give them. And that's where I can say from my personal experience. And just exactly what you were talking about, not understanding themselves, again, takes back to what I said. That's where you and I completely align. As people want to start to take, well, this is what I need now, and this is what I need now, so I'll take that now. But then they're still not giving that back to that person to fulfill them. So they want to keep giving it. And then when both sides start to take, that's when there's no love anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think one of the things that people have to understand on their spiritual journey is it is a journey of self-acceptance and self-realization and self-love. And that doesn't make you selfish in the derogatory term, doesn't make you a narcissist if you're saying to people, look, I need some time on my own, I need boundaries, I need all of this stuff. Because when people have this desire to be of service, what I see a lot is, and I'm sure you've experienced this, where you overgive, you're giving to your audience, your clients, all of the rest of it. And you're forgetting that the first person you need to give to is yourself, and you burn out. So if you could talk about your experience with that, because I know when you have a desire to be of service, And lots of people out there will be having that. There is this energy that comes with being of service. It's a beautiful experience. You're able to help people. You're able to see how they get on and kind of hold their hand through the process. But there's also that fine line where it becomes unhealthy and you burn out. So if you could talk about your experience with that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, shoot. So I still experience this. I don't think I'll ever get it down to a fine art to be able to discern or disconnect from it, because there's always, as you say, when you are of service, people know this. And even if other people are of service, but they're desperate in that moment, they'll do whatever it takes to get your energy in whatever way. I've had some severe cases where people will message your phone and say, right, I'm going to take my own life now. And there's been I think in the last 2 years, there's been 14 people that I've stopped or believe that my conversation has stopped them from taking their lives, and I've done a bit of work with them and stuff like that. And that kind of burns you out a lot, because you know there's a lot riding on that, and you know that you're not here to save the world. You and I have had that conversation before, and it's like, Colin, you know you're not here to save everybody, and you can't. I get that, but I've got this thing inside of me that says if I don't do this, something bad's going to happen. And it's almost like when people come to me for readings, or people come for relationship strategies or coaching, whatever you want to call it, or they come to me for anything, I feel that I can't really say no. And I know that the word no is the best and the biggest boundary that you can ever have in the world. Like if someone says, I'm going to take that from you, I'm easily say no. If someone, was making it out that we're going to take advantage of me, I would absolutely stand up for myself. I'm the eldest of 5 boys that grew up in a housing scheme in Glasgow. I know how to say no and defend myself, but it's not how I live and how I want to live. So I allow people to kind of take and take and take. And it gets to the point where either I'll just go, right, okay, well, I can no longer give. And I've got to disconnect myself that way. But there's also some times where I can feel myself becoming physically unwell because of the point where I'm not taking enough time for myself. So once I'm of service to the general public or the people of the earth, and then I've got my family, and I've got my family before and after that, and in between that, then after that, I've got myself to try and work on purpose and platforms and all these different things, and then content to try and create. And it's like I don't have enough hours in the day to be able to do it. So in terms of burnout, I still feel it. I think I've built up a stronger resilience over time. But doing what I do in my strategic fashion is to do it the hard way. And I've learned, would I advise anybody else doing it the hard way? If that's how you like to learn, absolutely. I don't like to learn that way, but it just seems to be everything that I do, I make the mistake or I make the wrong decision or I consciously do something wrong so that I can understand what the worst case scenario would be. But again, emotionally, and I'm very good at letting the past go. So if something really traumatic happened to me today, tomorrow I could still go on with my life because I'm good at disconnect. Most people don't have that ability because they've not practiced resilience and stuff. So I feel if anybody feels that they're in that kind of position where they burn out quite easy, better boundaries is the absolute answer. And the word no, I can't believe people don't really use the word no in this earth anymore, including myself. Nobody's perfect, we understand that. But the word no, it just seems so strong and final that you can then just switch off from that situation that's draining you. And I am getting better.
Good. Good. Well, I'm glad to hear it because I know you and I have known each other on this journey for some time. And I think we've both had periods where we've been overgiving and oversharing and just allowing everybody access to our time. And I'm like you, I'm still learning what's right for me. And I think as life changes, as your life circumstances change, even as the seasons change, you have different levels of energy, different availability. And it's okay to say no. No is a full sentence.
Yeah.
And it is one of the hardest things. And for people who have people pleaser archetype running through them, as well as wanting to be of service, it can be a really hard thing. And there's nothing wrong with taking time out. I think the way that we have co-created society as humanity is that we have to be available to everyone 24/7 and we have to be on all of the time. And it is okay not to be on all of the time. And you don't have to be available to people 24/7. So I won't keep you for much longer because you've graciously given me an hour of your time. But what I would like to do is just to give you the opportunity to tell people what it is that you're up to, what you've got on your schedule, what work you're doing at the moment, what you're not doing, and how people have listened to this episode and like, I need to work with Colin, how they can do that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that very much. As Susie's quite rightly said, I do psychic readings. They are different compared to what the average psychic reading would be, because I created and defined the way that I work myself, which means it's kind of self-taught, self-made, which I love. And I love being able to do that and seeing the look in people's faces and going, that's why that's why I decided to do this, that's why I created it. Now, the thing that I'm working on at the moment, and a few months ago, obviously, I came to you, Susie, and I said, listen, there's not many people in the world that I would take advice from, and there isn't. You know, there's not many people that I would take anything from, because I know that it would be an opinion over the balanced overview. And that's why I love our conversation, because it's usually always a balanced overview where it's, yeah, we can just open it up. So I, about a year ago, was giving a reading to a guy that was a client that's now a friend. And he's like, wow, how did you know all this? And I explained how it all worked. And there was things that wasn't even on his radar that all happened, etc., as you do with psychic stuff. And he was like, do you think you could ever create this into an application? And I says, I don't know. I said, that's a bit of a feat. Now, I'm not one of these guys that loves a challenge. So I just like to think of it as little as possible. That's me. That's my, I don't know if it's my Taurus or if it's just my man thing or whatever, but I like to think about it as little as possible because it makes me happier. Right, I'll think about what I'm looking at, and whatever else will be an issue when it comes up. But this time, I'd taken it on. I says, do you know what? I said, I'm going to think about this. So I spent 6 months working out, is it me that's psychic, or am I just good at reading other people's energy through modalities such as cards or whatever? Is it me or is it them? And when I worked out that it was actually what people gave me to read, that was the information. So you read the Akashic Records, that they give you permission for you to read that. Okay, they don't give it in a bit of paper or a £5 note and say, take that, right? They allow you in. So what I realized was when I read for people and they shuffle the cards and they give them back to me, what they're doing is they're giving me their energy. And I'm reading that. People think it's a random choice when people shuffle cards, but you don't say to yourself, I'm going to shuffle this for 7.3 seconds and then I'm going to stop and then that's what I'm going to give them. Something in your body says that's enough. And you just hand the cards over and it's all unconscious. So what I realized was, yes, I do have a psychic gift, absolutely. But also people are all gifted and they all have this information. And the information that I give them is what they all need, not what they want. So if someone wants to come to me, it's like, if you think you're going to get there, you're going to get told the ideal partner, the ideal house, and you're going to win the lottery. Tough, it's not coming. But what I'll do is I'll tell you how you need to be thinking differently and more open and be more open to this and changing things around. And then what happens is they go and they do it and then things start to fall into place and they come back and go, my life's totally changed. And they say, thanks very much. And I say, it was all you. You gave me the information. I just passed it on. And then you went and achieved it. I said, so well done you. So what I did was I designed an application that people are going to be able to read their own psyche or their own psychic at home and taking them on their journey. The application actually has everything that's in my brain in the application. It's very, very clever. Everyone gets sent a deck of cards. So that's the human energy aspect. And then once they've shuffled, they can then put the numbers into the platform. Now, they won't get a tarot card like a 10 of swords or a page of wands or anything like that. They just get numbers 1 to 7 to 8. Each of the values are mine that I've created due to learning about psychology in the mind and the brain. So it's very earthly. It's very tangible stuff that we can put into practice, stuff that we can actually see, visualize, and then we can start to work on it. Now, when I came to you, I said, I don't know, I'm scared of AI, I'm scared of all this stuff. And I was like, I'm scared to put this out there because I don't want it to be used. I would never use something in a bad way. I would always utilize it for what it is, but I would never be bad or use it to be rich or whatever. And you says, Colin, as long as it doesn't get into the wrong hands, you should be able to do whatever you wish. And when you said that, that's when I literally, again, like my Akashic record reading, like my soul contract, all these things, I literally stepped up into that and I said, you know what? I'm really going to own this. So recently I've been out speaking to the ethical investors, and most of them have been nothing to do with any sort of spiritual, psychic, any of these. They're very much businessmen, okay, that don't know about the information and the data and everything that's coming out, which means that the business that they've got, I feel, are ethical. But also there's the other side where they're not going to try and go in and try and sweep the rug from under my feet and try and steal it to use it for bad. Yeah. If I went to the likes of some sort of big internet company or something along these lines, you understand that is a totally different way of working. they'd be trying to use that for themselves, where I'm like, no. So the platform allows people to give themselves readings at home. Amazing. And then what else is I'm running an AI on the platform after a year. And what this is going to use is geolocational information. So if there's 1,000 people in London and 1,000 people in Glasgow, I'll be able to see the underlying issues in both cities and then start to contact myself, ethical charities, ethical businesses to go in and help. Not so much these people, but I'll say if you go in and advertise here, I'm not making money off their businesses, but I'm making sure the right businesses are in there rather than, and again, I'm not putting them down or slagging them off, but rather than the government saying, here's a problem and here's a solution, I'm saying, no, here's what the real problem is, and these guys are the solution. And they can say, yeah, giving you the details for here through your inner voice, and then they go, right, okay, well, I know it came from him. That's Tyler thing, and it's like we're able to then work out what's actually wrong with people in the collective or what the program is or whatever. And we can not go against it, but we can actually create a new cycle and we can actually create a new way of living within that. So if the communication's bad, I can start putting things out that language specialists or communication specialists in that area, and they could be doing little workshops. So again, I'm not forcing it onto people's doors, but people say, do you know what? Yeah, my relationships are bad, or yes, my communication, but they've got the choice to go and do it. Nothing is final unless that individual makes that, choice to do so. So again, I'm not trying to be God. I'm not trying to be anything. It's more of a medium that people can connect with themselves through words as opposed to thoughts that become distracted and noisy. And then on the other side of things, it's more about being offered a service to help them if they wish to grow. Okay, it's not going to be a mortgage advisor I'm offering them, but it will be something that they can then start to understand themselves or their interactions or their family or stuff better, or how to go and learn and make money or be self-sustainable. All these type of things will be offered to them, and it'll be offered through the platform as well.
I love that. So when does this all come live?
So at the moment, I'm in the investment stages, and I've got 3 relatively big investors that are now talking about it. One speaking to their accountant. Next week, I've got another one with their accountant coming to see me to try and work out how this works. It'll take about a month to 6 weeks to build. So we'll be towards the end of the year, just in time for what I believe is ready to come and hit the world. And I do believe that there'll be a lot of people maybe stuck in their houses and things like that again. And while they are, if they're able to tap into themselves without having to learn how to meditate through this application, I think it will work out really well for them. And again, it's not for financial gain. A lot of what I'm wanting to do with the money will be to build sustainable communities, buy land and do things that people can come together and create community with. Or we might have a load of people that get paid and go and create a huge vegetable garden. And then the people that don't have as much money or whatever, they can come and just collect the fruit and veg that's fresh, organic, these type of things. There's loads of things that I want to achieve through, or want to achieve for other people through what I'm doing. It's not that money's not my end goal. It never has been. But my end goal is for people to create a new system rather than be controlled by the one that I believe to be so broken.
I love that. And I think what you've highlighted there is, systems like AI, bad in themselves. What we have to choose at the time that we're in with AI is how are we going to feed the machine? Because I think we can be too dismissive and say, okay, well, it's bad, it's evil, let's ignore it and never use it and never touch it, and kind of bury our heads in the sands. But it's here, it exists, and we as humanity have to decide what we're going to use it for. And I think what you've demonstrated there is that it can be used for good. It's like social media can be used for really good things. I met you through social media. I meet lots of my clients through social media. I get to talk to people all over the world about things through social media. It can be amazing. It can also be exhausting and draining, and you can end up in comparison land. And so what we have to understand is, especially with technology, they're tools that we can use to help and enhance things to create, bringing things forward for new generations, or we can use them for bad. I think you've really highlighted there how it can be used for good and to help people. So thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. Obviously, I love to chat with you anytime.
Yes,
I look forward to seeing it all develop. If you don't mind, I would like to invite you back onto the podcast when you do get launched.
Oh,
So
amazing. You're the first podcast that I've been on to discuss even a little bit about it. So this is an
I love it.
exclusive.
World exclusive. You heard it here
Yeah,
first.
yeah. And we're looking to create some big waves for people. And again, it's just to give them self-sovereignty over their own thoughts, actions, and beliefs. And once that happens, that's where we become live in a better world. So let's just
Absolutely.
hope it
Absolutely.
comes off the way that we intend.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is that self-sovereignty, authenticity, radical self-responsibility. You take ownership of all of that. That is what's going to build the new world,
Yeah,
which we're all
hugely.
hoping for. All right,
Yeah.
my love. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. And I will let you go off and enjoy the day in, I hope, sunny Scotland.
Well, it's not very sunny at the moment. But thank you. Have a lovely day, and I will speak to you soon.